What is up, everyone? Welcome to another video. Today we're diving into this Bloomingdales dresser designed by Ralph Lauren. It has real bamboo detailing, really great bones, a solid wood frame, and the drawers are solid mahogany. But it has definitely seen some better days after somebody got spray paint happy with this white paint. Today, we're going to be taking this piece on a full journey through cleaning, sanding, priming, and a fresh coat of paint in a really awesome color that you're going to have to stick around to see. And as a final touch, we're going to replace these knobs with something a bit more fitting. Let's get started. So when I picked this up, I started doing research and I found it listed on Cherish and First Dibs for over $6,000. I wasn't quite sure, but then I found the Bloomingdales marker, and when I stripped one of the drawers, I found the same pattern. So you can see there's a ton of overspray from the person who painted this last time, and I wanted to bring this back to original. I really did. So I tried stripping one of these drawers before I started this project just to see. And while it looks okay here on the camera, it's really not completely clean. There's a lot of paint stuck in the cane, and I made the decision it just wasn't feasible for me to strip the whole thing. So what I'm going to do is focus on getting a nice new paint finish in an updated color. I'm not really sure what happened here. You can tell somebody took this off and then put it back upside down. So that will be getting fixed. All right, let's get into it. First step is to disassemble and see what we've got. All right, as always, it's a great idea to clean your piece down very well before you get started with any sanding or painting, of course. Also, this thing had been sitting in my garage for a while, so it had collected a lot of dust. So I'm just using natured alcohol and water mixture to get everything nice and clean and ready for the next step. Because this piece has a lot of small cracks and crevices, I am using my 5-in-1 tool just to get in there and get out any debris, and then wiping it clean. So I'm having trouble figuring out exactly how old this is. On Cherish and First Dibs, it was listed as being from the 70s, but I saw other places where it was said it was from the 80s, and then somewhere else where it said it was from the 90s. So, however, it was very dirty and definitely benefited from a nice clean. And I am very curious, actually, about where well, I know where it's from, Bloomingdales, but when it is from. If anybody recognizes this style or this particular model, let me know. I'm really curious. Before getting to painting, we need to scuff up the surface. This paint had a high sheen to it, so we want to make sure and knock all of that back so that our primer and our paint will adhere properly. I'm using a sponge interface pad on this mouse sander just because there are so many curves. I just want to make sure I can get around everything and not disrupt the profile. So I'm just going over all of the different areas, knocking back the sheen and making sure that the transition between where there is still paint and where I'm getting down to the raw bamboo is nice and smooth, so when I paint over it, you won't be able to tell. Once the scuff sanding is complete, I'm going over everything with my vacuum and doing this just because all of these little grooves from all the cane collected up a lot of that dust. So I'm going to go over everything with the vacuum and then come back with some cleaner and wipe everything down with a cloth. Here again, I'm just using 50-50 mixture of denatured alcohol and water. I find that it gets everything nice and clean, and then also dries really quickly. So the denatured alcohol is actually also labeled as fuel in the hardware store, which I didn't realize until I went looking for it. So in case you didn't know, that's what that is. And now that we've finished prep, we are ready to prime. So I'm going to line my paint dish with some foil. This will just help keep it clean and easy to just toss away at the end. I'm using Bin Shellac Base Primer for this project. As I'm sure you've heard from other YouTubers and furniture flippers, this stuff is really good at sealing in odors, tannins, and stains, as well as creating a nice uniform surface that pretty much any paint is going to adhere to. So I'm going to go over this with a couple of coats and then move on to painting. Because this cane has so many detailed areas and in all different directions, I'm gonna apply the primer the same way. I'm gonna go back and forth, vertical and horizontally, just to make sure that I am getting good coverage on all the areas so that I have a nice, durable paint adhesion. While that dries, I am going to save my primer and roller by just wrapping it in a bag and coming back in about 30 minutes to do my next coat. That's one of the also the good things about this primer is that it dries really fast and you can go ahead and move on quickly. And it's time to switch gears and move back to sanding. I'm going to do the same scuff sand on all of the drawer fronts before priming. Once sanding is complete, I am going to do the same cleaning process here with my vacuum and then wiping everything down with 50-50 mixture denatured alcohol and water and a soft cloth. Once dry, the next step is to apply primer to all of the drawer fronts. Once the second coat of primer was dry on the dresser body, I wanted to make sure that everything was nice and smooth and ready for paint, and so I'm using a high grit sanding pad just to go over everything. It will smooth out any roller marks and also get any little debris that may have landed in the primer while it was drying. And as a last step before paint, I just want to address any detailed areas to make everything look nice and neat. So some of these little crevices looked a little bit messy, so I'm using some paintable caulk and just filling those in, smoothing out with my finger, and then wiping down with a wet cloth just to get everything nice and smooth. And finally, doing my second coat of primer on the drawer fronts, and then we will be ready to move on to paint. For the color reveal, ta-da! It is green. It's a dark green. It's called Hunt Club by Sherwin-Williams. I am painting this in their HGTV home furniture paint from Lowe's. And as usual with this paint, I was having trouble painting straight from the can. So after, as you kind of could tell there, I was having some issues with the paint spray pattern, but once I watered it down just a tad, it started coming out a little more smoothly. As I'm painting, I am thinking about the best approach to get all of the different areas on this dresser. It's the first time I'm painting anything with this rattan or cane texture, so I decided to make sure that I'm going a little bit slower than I normally would, just so the paint would have time to get down into the little areas, and this seemed to do the trick. I wasn't too worried about it on this coat, just because this is the first coat, so I'm not going for, completely full coverage, but I did think that that helped to make sure that I was hitting all the different areas. And I'm now moving on to the second coat. So as usual, the second coat really does start to get you more closer to full coverage, and things start filling in and looking really good. And that was no exception with this time around either. This paint really does, once it's watered down a little bit, at least for this particular sprayer and the way that I spray, I was getting a nice smooth application. And here it is after the paint has dried. I really do like the color. It's hard to see it exactly on this lighting, but you'll see it in a bit in natural lighting. Really nice, smooth application. And as you saw, I sprayed with the drawers in, so now I am just pulling out the drawers a little bit and getting the edges on the top and sides with a square fine brush. This is a zebra brush, and I'm just going along all of these areas. I'll have to do a couple coats, but then everything will be blending in nicely. Now time for new hardware. I went ahead and replaced the knobs that the previous owner had put on. They were like an octagonal shape, but I thought that these round ones complemented the diamonds a little better, and they're a little simpler with all the everything going on with the rest of the dresser. I just felt like these were a better fit. What do you think? And here it is. This is the moment that brings our restoration journey full circle. After hours of careful preparation, this rich green paint has really transformed this dresser. I think it really complements the style and highlights the bamboo details nicely, and these new poles I think fit much better than the previous ones. Along with the matching nightstands, I am excited for someone to take these home and enjoy for years to come. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.